than your currency. Splurging millions, buying houses like Monopoly. Fucking 9 to 5, man, the money is a joke to me. Buying cryptocurrency, my money in the privacy. I make it rain dollars, they watch me disappear. I'm so fly.
Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the B.Invested Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch, and this is the show unraveling the truth to the facade of the 21st century. We're now exiting the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. Today, I want to talk about something a lot of people have been asking, like I think over the last sort of maybe 6 months or so, my team have been putting up deals that we've been working on out there, and the properties that we put up on our social media, like on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. And looking at it, people often ask, Birchy, how do you get properties that are so cheap? How do you know that they're a good investment if they're so cheap? How do you get these properties off market? And how do you keep your foot in the door and be aggressive enough to be able to get the deals? Because when I speak to real estate agents, they tell me, no, the deal's gone, or whatever the case may be. So I just sort of dive into that today. So when I put the properties out there, some of the properties, probably the cheapest one's been about $9,000 in the last year that we've had. So the cheapest property that we found for our investors is $9,000 in the last year. That's total price, $9,000. On average, I'd say between $150,000 and $400,000. With the most expensive one was $6.6 million for it. So they're all in different price ranges. But when I'm buying them, I want to make sure that I'm getting them below market value. And people say, well, the market value is what you pay for them. Well, the market value is deemed on what someone would pay for it, yes. But when you look at what that property is, I define market value as looking at the same things that a valuer would when they're going out to value the property. So I look at recent sales and other properties that are currently on the market, and I look at all the statistical data that shows where the values come to as well. So looking at when I buy a property, I want to make sure that I'm buying it. If you've got, let's just say there's a unit, for example, right? It's one unit and there's 20 other units in the complex. 3 units have sold for $300,000 and this one unit you can get for $200,000. It's the same. That would be $100,000 below the identical same units that are selling in the block at the same sort of time in the same sort of market. So the question that you might be saying is, well, how do you find that, right? Well, I've been doing this now, like to this year, 2023, is 20 years of me being a property investor. I'm 38 this year, not 38 yet, but I will be turning 38, getting old. But when I first started 20 years ago, I didn't know anything, right? There was no internet. Just remembering this, right? Let's go back through an old time. In 2003, no one had a phone. Like the phone was, you could send 160 text line to someone if you're lucky, right? You couldn't even send Telstra to Optus text messages, right? That was when phones first came out. There was no realestate.com. There was no Google Maps. There was no satellite Earth. There was none of this stuff, right? There was no YouTube. YouTube wasn't even a thought or an existence at that point. It was probably a thought somewhere, but it was not around. So there was no podcast. There was no Facebook. There's no way of communicating and getting knowledge. So it was a matter of going out to areas and building relationships with agents and all that. And I guess over the years, like I've bought over 15,000 properties for myself and for other people. I would have bought for myself well over 300 properties. I own still over 200 properties now, plus about 30 motels. And building up those relationships, I didn't buy every property that I've inquired on, right? I've inquired on 10 times more than that, 20 times more than that. And, I was talking about the other week about, the amount of properties that transact in a year. There's like 514,000 transactions that happened in 2022 in that 12-month period across Australia. So 20 years, that would have seen 20 million transactions, which, really there's only like 10 million properties in the country. So how do I get that data? How do I sift through that, and what sort of things do I learn from 20 years of investing and sort of 14 years of running the business with the buyer's agency? So I've got in my database over 28,000 real estate agent details. I reverse market to them. So I ask agents, what properties do you have? Or I'll say, hey, I've got a need for something like this. Every conversation that I'm having with an agent, I'm trying to get them to send me other deals and other opportunities. And there's a bit of NLP in that. Like, I've never done a course in NLP. I just understand how body language works and how people's minds work. So I'm thinking about whoever I'm negotiating with or against. What do they want out of the transaction, right? It's pretty common sense stuff when you break it down, but people come in and they add their emotion in, right? They're like, I must have the property. If you don't give it to me for this price, I'm going elsewhere, right? Or whatever the case may be. That makes it a you against them scenario. But if you can collaborate with that person and then find a third party, it's the art of war, right? And you go and find a third party that's a common enemy against you. It's like, well, I want to work with you, but the bank won't allow me to get the loan at that amount. The only amount that we can go up to is this amount, right? And then you're collaborating and working with the agent. I've got so many great relationships with agents that I've built over the years. Yes, there's lots of dodgy and shit agents out there, and they don't stay in the industry for long enough. But and some of them are good as well because I'm getting properties that are very cheap. But I've got really good relationships, and those relationships are invaluable. I know that the real estate agents at the end of the day want to get a sale. They want to get a commission, and they want to go home and play with their kids and go out for dinner and hop on a boat and go on a holiday somewhere and take some Instagram videos in front of their BMW. Right? Just make up a very stereotypical sort of real estate agent. But the reality of it is they just want to get a deal done. So if you can show them the path of least resistance, it's building up that relationship that goes, okay, next time they get a property, I've got agents. I've got this one agent. He only sends me a property probably every 6 months. I buy a property off him every 6 months. Every time I buy it, it's probably like 20 or 30 grand cheaper than all the others in the area or all the others in the same block, right? And when I say 20, 30 grand cheaper, I mean a property is 170 grand, I pick up for 140 grand, right? Rent for $300 a week. And this agent, he just keeps coming to me. And I think, why does this guy come to me? He doesn't even list them on the market, right? And it's like, well, he just can get rid of it, right? He can get rid of the property. The owner could be getting more if they went with a different agent. The owner could be getting more if they went to the market. But this guy, to his credit, he just comes to me and says, here you go, right? And I get the properties that are cheap because I've got that relationship that's been built over 15 years of dealing with this agent, right? I've got some agents that are in Sydney that I've been dealing with before, websites were like what they were today, right? I remember once actually saying to this agent, the agent may be watching. I remember being in there, it's in a city agent, and I remember saying, I want to change my name to nathanbirch.com.au, right? So I just thought it would be funny, right? Who would have thought? And I was like 22, 24 years old, something like that. I was much younger. And looking back, these relationships that I've built over the years with these agents, they've become very crucial for me to be able to get what I want and be able to get the deals that I get. I remember back in 2012, the Sydney property market went crazy, right? Like, it was hotter than what it was recently, right? 2011, 2012, agents that I've dealt with for 7 years or so, they come to me and they say, oh, Nathan, look, you've got to sign a contract to Savo. It's like, here's the contract, right? Very clean transaction. And they go, well, someone from my office has got another buyer for an extra $2,000. What's the new offer? I'm like, mate, I just went to your fucking office and signed a contract, 1 hour drive each way, and you're telling me someone's come for an extra $1,000. I got to a point where I'm like, hang on a second, I need to respect myself. And I'm like, the market's good at the moment, you might have a good time, but when the market turns shit, don't you come back to me and say, ever do a deal with me. Delete my number, delete my details, delete every one of my fucking staff. Don't even try to come in the back door to my staff and give them a deal and try to tell them to come to me with it, because I don't want to fucking deal with people like you. And it's remaining that position, remaining your integrity, remaining in a good market. There's good times for you, there's bad times for you. And in a hot market, agents don't care about you. In a poor market, in a crap market, the agents will come to you and say, hey, do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy this? More so than what they would in a normal market. So looking at those relationships, you need to maintain them from all different aspects. Understanding what the agent's trying to get out of the deal, understanding what the seller's trying to get out of the deal. Sometimes I'll go to a deal, and in a moving market, if the market's very hot and I can see a market taking off, I've actually got a motel settling, right? This is the end of February that we're filming this. I've got a motel settling at the end of March this year in 2023. That was one of the first motels I bought. It's in Toowoomba. I bought it for $1.9 million. And I couldn't get the price that I wanted, but I knew it was a fantastic property, right? I said to the agent, I will buy the property for your price, but I want a 2-year settlement, right? And they said, well, look, we'll give you the 2-year settlement, but it needs to be drawn down. You need to give us 10% now and then another 10% in 12 months' time. So that's fine. So I gave them the deposits that they required at that point in time. I know now that I've actioned the property, and in my mind, these guys didn't think about it, but the property becomes an installment contract, which changed the whole dynamic. Basically, you can take the property off the owner and pay him a little bit each week, sort of thing. I'm not going to do that, but it changes the dynamics of the property. But what I got was my terms, and I know when I valued that property now, it came in at 50% higher than what I paid for the property 2 years ago. So if I can't get my price, I'll add my terms to it and I'll buy something. So I look at what I can do to make a win-win outcome for myself, for the agent or whoever I'm working with, and for the seller of the property. So everyone was happy. But now what happens, and I find that these people get the shits 2 years later, they're like, oh, I don't want to fucking sell you the property, you're a prick, whatever, right? It's like, well, we did a deal, right? We did a deal, your poor judgment. I made the deal. You was happy on that day that you wanted to get out of the property, but I saw something that the other person didn't see at the table. There's other times, right? Like I've had a bank, right? I had one of the big world banks, like a global bank. This is 2013. I was a pimple-faced fucking kid. 10 years ago, I was still 28 actually, but in 2013, I did this deal, and those of you that might remember it, I had a pink singlet, and I was walking around the Gold Coast, right? There's a block of 800 units. Poor bastards in there were paying 600 grand, 700 grand, 800 grand. People would be like, Birchy, why do you want to go and buy a property in a block of 800 units that goes against all reasons of buying a property or a good investment? And why I bought this property? It was 3 towers. The developer built the first tower, pre-GFC, sold them all. Second tower was getting built. It was all a part of the one integrated sort of development there. The second tower got built. All that nearly got sold, and then the developer went bankrupt, right? So the bank had the debt attached to, it was a big bank, right? Like the big fucking world banks, not your little banks in Australia, it's a big world bank. They flew out from the Netherlands, right? These guys flew out from the Netherlands. They built the tower 3 of this, right? So it was probably like, by the time I came across the deal, it came to me through a disposal agent, right? So when a person or company goes bankrupt, it doesn't go from the bank to the real estate agent and the bank go out there and clean it. They employ an agent which interviews 5 agents, and then they employ one of their 5 agents. They clean up the property, they get it ready for market, they become like a consultant for that, right? A disposal agent, right? And the banks have these people on their books, and there's a few dozen of them out in the country, and I've got very good relationships with them. I don't talk to them much nowadays because people don't go bankrupt. That's how I know when a market's good or bad. If they're calling me, people are losing their shit. If they're not calling me, they're like, Nathan, I've got no stock. It's like people can't go bankrupt. They can sell it easy, right? So it's just my data. But these guys here brokered a deal, and the disposal agent I spoke to, they're employed to sell off like 300 units or something out of this tower. And by the time I got to them, there was about 80 units left. And I said, look, I'll take all of them, and here's your figure. It was like, I don't know, I'm just making this figure up. Right? It's like $30 million. I said, I'll pay you $30 million. And they came to me and they said, well, like they wanted to know, before I even put my proposal to them and put a submission in, I was like, look, you guys have got 10 different real estate agents trying to sell this thing. You've got the holding costs of it. You've got the marketing campaigns. You're paying for advertising. They actually had 2 offices in the tower, which they had salespeople from their own business running, right? So they had to pay for wages for these sales staff and stuff. I said, what I want you to do, close all your fucking sales, don't have to sell a single thing, right? You'll have 2 properties left, 5 properties left, 10 properties left, and you'll still be trying to sell these things, right? And I went in, these things were selling for like 600 grand, 700 grand. The bank was selling for like 550 and stuff. I went in and said 250K to about 320 grand per unit. 80 of them, give them to me, right? And they said, okay, cool. We'll give them to you. It was about $30 million. And then in the meanwhile, these other agents, they knew that the price had dropped by 50%. They were trying to get the commission. So they were coming in and they were using me as a guinea pig to get their foot in the door and make sales. I put a foot down and said, listen, all of you guys fuck off. I need to be calling the line here. We've got like 45, 50 properties left here. I'm taking them. If one more of these properties sell, deal's off. And they came from the Netherlands, right? This bank, big fucking bank, came over, met with us, and did the deal, right? I took out a tower. The deals are built on relationships. That's why I get things off market. Today I was talking to a commercial agent. It started, actually here's a funny story. There's a deal on foot at the moment. I've got this big motel that's got like 100 rooms in it. One of the clients is a big mining company and they pay lots of money. It's great. And I was like, who's this mining company? I want to know about it, right? So I just did a bit of Googling. I found the mining company and I found that they had some properties to sell, right? And they had this news article. And I found the news article. I went to the agent in the news article. I said, hey, can I get these properties? Give me more information. And I found out there's a portfolio of properties that's around, which is like 200 properties. And I'm going to come to the market with that soon and tell you guys, hey, let me know if you're interested in this, and I'm getting them really cheap. They've got a 20-year lease they've taken out over the property. They pay for everything on it, right? And I'm getting these things for like 150, 200 grand for houses and units. But in that process, I started talking to this agent and I said, I want some more stuff. And that thing's a tender that's taken like a year to make happen. And then in the conversation, he sent me a deal. I got 10 units for $88,000 a unit, right? They rent for $300 a week. Happy days. And in the process, that deal was a bit shaky, right? I got the shits and I said, tell the owner to get stuffed. I'll go find something. I'll redeploy my clients onto other deals. He goes, I've got a new backup deal for you, Nathan. And he got me 6 units that were 3 bedrooms each, 5 years old. He doesn't sell residential stuff. He thought about what I needed. He called one of his old clients and they would thinking about offloading a property. I got this property completely off market, 160 grand, rent for $400 a week, 5 years old, and these things similar were selling for like 400 grand beforehand. You can't build them for that. So if I look at it, like some of the bulk deals come from that. If I look at the individual deals, I look at realestate.com for like hours a day. I've got all these search buttons. I push like 10 different save things, another 10 different save things. I look at the data in reverse. I play my data in all different ways. I've got processes behind how I field that data and whatnot, and how I communicate with those agents in my process. I find anomalies in the market, right? I see a property that's in my list, in my searches. I'm like, hang on a second, I know that suburb, I know the street, I know the block, I know wherever it is. Like one sold 2 years ago for this price, or one sold 3 months ago for that price. And if I find an agent, some agents will be lazy. Some will be out of town area agents. Some of them will just be like, yeah, the last one sold for 150, that's what it's worth. But they won't see that the market now has gone up to 250 because they're just looking at their own, two-dimensional world they have to look at. So I find properties that are cheap from all different locations. The biggest way that I get my properties is from building relationships with agents and my research into those markets. I know when I see something like that's good. If I want to make it go further, I build a good rapport, build a relationship, and those relationships are invaluable because when something comes in the market, an agent knows I ain't going to find someone that's going to buy 10 properties in a day. I ain't going to find someone that's going to buy 50 properties in a year. And with these agents, I can do large volumes of transactions with them. To the real estate agent, I'm their golden goose. It's like they've got a salesperson, but all they have to do is perform specific tasks. Those specific tasks are my price, my terms, my conditions, and give you the deal, right? And it's never like, oh, well, if you don't do this, you can do this. If I'm only prepared to go to this. Like people negotiate, they're like, I'm only prepared to pay this amount. That's stupid, right? Because now you've put a void between you and the other side, and it's you against them. It's like, well, I'd love to buy it for more. I'd love to buy it. That property has my name all over it, right? I know I'm the buyer of this property. The only thing is that your vendor, if we look at it, I know that other properties are sold for much less, pulling out data, pulling out different things. I know the market is going down. I know the news. I know that the CoreLogic data came out and said that prices have fallen. I'm happy to pay this, but you need to do 1, 2, 3 for me to be able to make that deal happen. So it's collaborating with them. So it's how you handle your competitor or the other side of the table when you're working on a deal. Knowing what deals are worth, research. I still spend 8 hours a day flicking through things. Like, I reckon I'm walking around and people think I'm probably on Tinder all day. They're like, seeing that and go, oh yeah, oh wow, that looks good. Fucking yeah, keep going, right? I'm looking at data, I'm looking at deals, I'm talking to real estate agents, I'm flicking through emails, etc. Making those deals happen. You have to be active. It is much easier now. It is better to scale. Back in the old days, I had to drive to areas, there was no internet, all that. And I've done the hard yards on, doing that over the years, over the decades. So a little bit about how I make those deals happen. I buy deals of value. I don't buy things because they're cheap, because sometimes things are cheap, but they're not good value. And you have to understand the difference between cheap and good value. And I want to buy things of good value. So I guess that's where the research comes through. If you like what I'm saying out here and you like my podcast, give us a like, share us with your friends and family. Tune in every Thursday. You can find us on Google Play, Apple Play, Spotify, and on YouTube. If you do need help locating deals, negotiating deals, making those deals happen, getting a property for $100,000, building a portfolio of 20 properties, understanding how it all works, that's what I specialize in. I've been a part of over 15,000 real estate transactions. Got hundreds of properties myself. Been doing this for 20 years. Hit us up. We're happy to help out where we can. Have a great day. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.
Like Bilal said, man, we're stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar back to die, soon to be hyperinflated. This my 2 cents, don't care if you save it. Joint be decentralized and you will see you've been lied to the whole time, and it's the irony, cause they do the exact opposite. You become a slave to the system, enough your money, all they do is profit. There's no conspiracy theory, you better hear me. Crypto will set you free before the system does. I don't care if you do or you don't, but what I'm saying is the truth to the reason you choke. I've never been a failure, excuse my behavior. Keep talking, haters doing me a favor. They all telling lies, I know what they been telling you. I'm the opposite of Donald Trump of Australia. It's amazing, here for the taking. My time is never wasted, just getting wasted. These girls say I'm really breathtaking. I can't help it if I really misbehave.